Hi guys, James at RampantLionReviews again for you today with another beer review. For this one, we are going to head down to the Netherlands once again for the first time in what feels like a good long while. So we're going to return to a brewery that has featured on the channel a good few times before. I've had some really nice beers from these guys over the years, and it is most definitely fair to say that these guys were one of the pioneering Dutch craft breweries. So the beer that we're going to have a look at today is a style that I don't believe I've had from this brewery before, but I know they are quite strong when it comes to the big malty, dark and barrel-aged things. And this is a style that I very much enjoy actually, so I'm quite curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. So hopefully it's another good beer, hopefully it makes for an interesting review, and as always, I hope that you guys enjoy my take on this one as well. So yeah, for this review then, we are going to head to a little place called Bodegraven, which is to the east of Leiden in the southern part of the Netherlands, and we're going to have a look at another beer from Brouwerij de Molen, or the Mill Brewery as it would be in English. So this particular beer is called Bommen Granaten, or Bombs and Grenades in English. It is the Bourbon barrel-aged edition, and this one comes in at 13.6% ABV, and it's a bourbon barrel-aged barley wine. So yeah, as far as I can remember, I have never had a barley wine from Brouwerij de Molen. So this should be very, very interesting. But let's crack on with this one then and see how we go. Definitely nice to return to the Netherlands for the first time in quite a wee while. So, as always with my reviews then, I'll tell you a little bit about the brewery before we taste the beer. If you want to get straight to the tasting, just fast forward. All the usual links are in the video description below. That's the brewery website, the link to my other reviews that I've done from Brouwerij de Molen before, and we will no doubt add more to that list at some point in the fairly near future. But there's all the usual social media down there. If you want to see more reviews, do please consider subscribing to the channel. It's always great to have the support that you guys give the channel. It's massively appreciated, and you can of course check out the playlist of beers from different countries. You will find this one in the Dutch playlist. Big shout out as well, since this is a Dutch beer review, to my friends in the Dutch Beer Collective. That is Remy of Beer Geek Holland, Thomas of Thomas Opent, we have Herben of Dutch Beer Geek, and we've also got Douglas of Beers with Douglas. So I'll make sure to put the link to the Dutch Beer Collective in the video description for you below, and there you can find all their channels and Instagrams and all that jazz. But some great beer reviewers, good friends of mine of course as well, so do go and give them some love and check out their channel. They review both in English and Dutch, so yeah, definitely go and check out some of their videos if you're interested in Dutch craft beer. But anyway, let's get on and have a little look at the brewery notes that I have for Brouwerij de Molen. So Brouwerij de Molen, as I've mentioned to you already, started off as a small craft brewery, distillery and restaurant in Bodegraven in the Netherlands. So de Molen translates into English as the mill, and the brewery is located in a historic windmill called de Archduyf, which was built back in 1657. So de Molen was founded in 2004 by Menno Olivier, who wanted to he started out as a home brewer and he wanted to turn professional. He'd homebrewed for about 12 years prior to turning professional, and then went on to found his own company. But soon after starting up, he was joined by John Bruce, who was instrumental in helping the brewery grow in the early days. And in those early days, they were just brewing very small 500 litre batches inside the windmill, and they still brew some pilot batches there from what I understand as well. But since 2012, the main brewery has been in another building down the street, and it produced beer in the beginning in batches of 2,500 litres. But over time, they've progressively upgraded their equipment, and these days they brew in 11,000 litre batches and produce way over 10,000 hectolitres of beer per year. So yeah, pretty impressive. But since 2016, they've been in a business arrangement with Bavaria Holland, which is also known as Swinkels Family Brewers. They took a 35% stake in the company, but in early 2019 they took full ownership, but apparently they don't interfere in the production or the day-to-day operations of the brewery. But both Menno and John are still active in the company, and from what I understand, a lot of the bigger involvement, the larger involvement of Swinkels and Bavaria in this case was because Menno actually got ill, but I believe he is getting better and is starting to take more of an active role in de Molen once again, which is nice to see considering he's one of the pioneers of the Dutch craft beer movement. But yeah, that is all I can really tell you about Brouwerij de Molen for the moment. These guys are a very well respected brewery, of course, and they're still pumping out some very nice beers from what I can understand. So yeah, as I said earlier, if you want to learn more about these guys, you can check out the brewery website, you can check out their social media. If you want to learn more about the beer specifically, I would recommend you look at the Untappd pages, and you can look at some of my earlier reviews, and you can of course check out my friends at the Dutch Craft Beer Collective. So yeah, that's everything for that. Let's get on and actually have a look at this beer itself then. So I'll just like to have a little look at the artwork on this one before we open up. As you can see, it is quite standard from what we've seen from Brouwerij de Molen before. If we bring that right up to the camera there, you can see the old windmill, which of course is the symbol of this brewery. You can see the nice red wax top on this, and it does tell you a little bit about this on the back here. So it's got a quote from Menno Olivier. So, mind-blowing craft beer. You experiment, give it a taste, and then do it all again. You fall flat on your face and pick yourself back up until finally you experience that sip, that tingling sensation that opens up new worlds, and it's an extraordinary feeling. Beer is craftsmanship, it is our passion, it is simply who we are. That is exactly what raises beer to an art form, Menno Olivier. So, yeah. This should be quite interesting. It says that this one contains Chinook and Challenger. We know these hops pretty well, but yeah, 13.6% bourbon barrel aged barley wine. The very first barley wine I've tried or will try from Brouwerij de Molen, I should say. But yeah, it should be quite nice. Let's get this guy out then and get on with the taste, and I'm very curious to see what it's going to have in store for us. I should have mentioned as well, this beer was released as part of the Tillfälligt sortiment through Systembolaget here in Sweden in September of 2022. And yeah, the main reason for getting this one was that I'd never had a barley wine from De Molen before. But yeah, the Bommen Granaten Bourbon Barley Aged Edition, 13.6% ABV. This is going to be pretty awesome, I think. And definitely nice to do another Dutch beer review after what seems like quite a long time. So, yeah, there we go. So, this looks lovely, I have to say. As you can see then, with this beer, it's poured with a lovely kind of 1/3 finger of a frothy, I would say kind of cream coloured head. It's almost got a like kind of fawn colour to it actually. You can see that if I bring it right up to the camera, a lovely kind of fawn colour, which looks great. But yeah, that is fading away to a very kind of thin foamy layer, which you'd expect when it is 13.6% ABV. There is a tendency of the higher alcohol beers not to hold their head all that well. But in terms of the colour of this beer, I would say that it's poured a really nice kind of almost like cherry wood colour, something like that. I think that's fair to say. A nice kind of rich mahogany. 1 or 2 big bubbles sticking toward the side of the glass. There are a few little ones going up toward the bottom of the head there. But overall, it looks pretty nice. And this is kind of what you would expect in terms of the colour for a barley wine. So yeah, remember, the colour of your beer depends on 1, the type of malts that you use. This goes a long way to determining your EBC rating. 2, the length of your wort boil is also going to play a role, because the longer you boil the wort, the more the sugars caramelise, and thus you'll get a darker colour of beer. That will play a role in this barley wine by the looks of it. I think this one probably has had a slightly longer wort boil, but barley wines tend to undergo a wort boil of about 6 hours or something like that, but it can be more. And any adjuncts or that you put in or barleys that you do will affect the colour too. But I don't know if the bourbon barrels will affect the colour of this one that much. But yeah, when it comes to barley wines, doppelbocks, Scotch ales and stuff like that, the barrel aging can play a slight role in the colour. But yeah, usually it's the type of malts and the length of the wort boil that are going to do the most with these things. So yeah, I think that's everything we need to say about the appearance of this beer. It's got a nice little bit of a natural haze to it, but yeah, it looks absolutely great. So let's have a little look at the aroma of this one then and just see how we go. Very curious about this, needless to say. Oh yeah, that smells awesome, I have to say. I've not had a barley wine in quite a wee while. Actually, I've not reviewed a barley wine in quite a wee while, so that's another thing that I quite like about this particular review, is that I'm getting to do a barley wine for the first time in a wee while. But yeah, aroma wise, this is lovely. Yeah, it's, you guys will know if you've watched the channel for any length of time, I'm a huge sucker for these big brown sugary beers, and this one gives me kind of exactly what I want. It's got the nice fruity notes, it's got the big brown sugary qualities. I love a good barley wine. Yeah, so remember, pale ales, IPAs, double IPAs and barley wines, these are all related to each other in terms of the hop to malt ratio. It changes as you go up the scale. From what I understand, the triple IPA is just basically taking the double IPA hop to malt ratio and, you know, making it stronger. The same with the quadruple IPA. Correct me on that if I'm wrong. But yeah, aroma wise, this one is it is really nice. Yeah, so it's interesting. What I'll say about it as well on first impression is that I don't think the bourbon barrel aging in this is madly apparent. I think it just adds a nice little bit of subtlety and depth to the beer, which is interesting. But let's break the aroma of the beer down a little bit and describe it for you more in depth. So definitely, the backbone of the beer, you can smell some of that nice, smooth American oak there. That's absolutely in the beer. On top of that, you can smell a little bit of that kind of brown sugar from the bourbon. I've always said that bourbon is a lot sweeter than Scotch whiskey in a lot of cases because they use corn in the American bourbon as well, so it is naturally sweeter than Scotch whiskey. So you can smell a bit of that smooth American oak. There's a little touch of vanilla to that, of course. Then you've got the bourbon brown sugar sitting on top of that. But then above all of that, you've got these big leathery brown sugars from the malt base itself, and you can kind of tell from the aroma of this one that it has undergone quite a long wort boil. You do get a little bit of that kind of treacly molasses sort of thing in this one. There's a good little bit of straight up sweet caramel, bit of butterscotch as well, and also some kind of nice McVitie's digestive biscuits. Yeah, it does have, it does have some nice it does have some nutty undertones to it, which I do like. So yeah, nice little bit of a nutty undertone to this one. Yeah, a little bit of nuttiness in there. You've also got that little bit of just, the nuttiness and the vanilla kind of go together quite well. It's almost like a pecan cashew sort of thing that you get from this, actually, the more that you smell of it. But as I say, nice big sweet caramel in there, a little bit more of a as you say, a little bit of a more kind of treacly molasses sort of note, some Werther's Original and a little bit of biscuit. The way the brown sugars in this beer go together is very nice, actually. Yeah, so the malt base in this is absolutely lovely. There is a little bit of kind of brown bready character as well, like a sort of sweet rye bread, but I'd say that takes a back seat to the brown sugars in this beer, obviously. But yeah, the way everything goes together in this one is very nice. Yeah, I think we should have a look at the hoppy side of the beer then. So remember, when this is barrel aged, a lot of the hoppy character will have dropped out of the beer. That is one of the things, and with barrel aging, one of the things that also happens is that you tend to sacrifice some of the mouthfeel to get some of these big infused flavours. So yeah, for me, on the hoppy side of things, there's a nice little touch of earthiness in there. There's a nice little bit of earthiness in there. There's a little bit of a herbal character as well. But you still have a little bit of a wet grassy and slightly floral note to this beer too. Yeah, aroma wise, this is very nice actually on the hoppy side of things. The hops just add a little bit more depth to it. But when it comes to the fruity side of the beer, this one's quite interesting because you do have a little bit of it's actually quite dry and fruity in some ways. I'm getting a little bit of kind of a datey backbone to the beer. There's a little bit of an oily sort of pear as well. But yeah, definitely getting some kind of pruny notes. Yeah, prunes, a little bit of fig, a little bit of date. And yeah, like just a little touch of like blackcurrant or something. There is a bit more of a kind of brighter red fruity note to this beer as well. The aroma is very nice. So yeah, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one, aroma wise. I'm just very curious to see how it tastes. So as I always say, take a little bit of time to enjoy the aroma of the beer before you get stuck into it, but we are going to crack on with this one and see what we have. So yeah, this one is the Bommen Granaten, the Bombs and Grenades, the Bourbon Barrel Aged edition. This one's a barley wine at 13.6% ABV. This beer comes to you from Brouwerij de Molen in Bodegraven in the Netherlands. Let's get stuck in. Slange, skål, cheers, Prost. Ooh, that's really nice. That is very good. It's one of these beers that's just really sort of, I mean, I could have kept this and aged it for longer if I wanted. And I think it says on the back here, you can actually, I'm guessing that it's a best before date. It says the 10th of June 2031. I could have kept this beer for a wee while, but I was just curious to try it. So this beer, it's been in the bottle about a year, I'm guessing, based on that. But this is very nice. It gets, as I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me. I could always buy another one and age it, but yeah, that's that. So, as I say, this is just a lovely, very chewy, oily, slick barley wine. It just gives you everything you would want from the style. I don't know when they would have first produced this particular beer, but I recognise the name, so I think this is probably one of their more kind of old school recipes actually. So I think this particular beer has probably been around for a good few years. The Dutch guys, of course, at the Dutch Beer Collective would be able to tell you that, but this one I think has been around for quite a long time. But it is very good. So like I said, it gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, it is lovely for sure. Yeah, where do we start with this then? Let's just start in the middle third of the palate, as we always do. So the backbone of this beer is that lovely smooth American oak. As I've said, I think the European oak is a bit drier than the American oak, but yeah, you've got that lovely smooth oaky backbone which goes into the back third of the palate and the middle third of your palate. But let's focus on that middle third of the palate. So yeah, lovely smooth oaky note there in the middle third of the palate. Toward the front of that, you do get a little touch of the vanilla. Remember, the kind of drier and more bitter flavours come out toward the back of your palate, the sweeter flavours come out further forward, and you're definitely picking up that kind of trend in this particular beer. So yeah, that's definitely noteworthy in this one. But yeah, toward the front of that middle third of your palate, there's a little bit of nuttiness in there, a little bit of vanilla, and then yeah, on top of that woody layer, you've got that nice kind of bourbon brown sugary note in there, that sweet kind of bourbon brown sugary layer, and it kind of mixes in and it infuses with the woody flavours, and it's very, very nice. On top of that, there is a layer of like quite a dense brown, almost like sweet rye bread character to the beer, which I really enjoy. So yeah, the way that this beer goes together in that sense is it's really, really nice. The way that the woody character just backs everything up, and then yeah, you've got the little bit of bourbon brown sugar and that more dense brown bready sort of thing. So yeah, I like how that goes together for sure. Sitting on top of the kind of brown bready notes, you have got this lovely treacly molasses sort of thing. You've got all the brown sugar side of the beer, which again I think goes together very nice. You guys know I'm a big sucker for these brown sugary beers. It's the Scottish sweet tooth. So yeah, the way with this one, what do we say? With the brown sugars then, there's quite a bit of complexity there. I mean, if you go, we'll work from the centre out the way. So the base on top of the kind of brown bready there, you've got a little bit of that toasty, brown sugary kind of note there, like a toasty caramel. So that's the kind of base there, but on top of that there are a few different layers of things, pardon me, going on with the brown sugar. So from the dead centre of your palate, you do have a little bit of a sweet caramel sitting on top, and as you go down from that, you get that more oily, treacly molasses sort of thing. So that's, you know, this beer's 13.6%. That's the concentration of your kind of alcohol in it. So yeah, as you go down from that, you've got a sweet caramel at the top, you've got a more oily, you do have a little bit of that more oily treacle molasses sort of thing underneath, but then you also have a little bit of you've got a little bit of a more kind of butterscotchy type note to this beer, I would say. So that's quite interesting too. So yeah, the way that goes together is quite nice. So yeah, sweet caramel, treacle molasses, then a more, pardon me, as you move further out from that, a little bit more of a kind of butterscotchy sort of thing. And then as you move toward the edges of the palate, you start to get a more McVitie's digestive biscuity sort of thing. And like I say, that is all kind of underpinned by a slightly toasty, caramelly layer to the beer, which, as I say, I very much enjoy. Yeah, the way that goes together is really, really very nice. Yeah, so the malt base in this beer gets a big thumbs up from me. If we go to the border region between middle and back third of your palate, again you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up there. Yeah, nice little bit of a kind of bready build up. It's almost like a kind of slightly sweet rye bready character there. But the base of the back third of the palate, the kind of wood, the bourbon barrel wood gets a little bit drier for sure. And then on top of that, you get the sort of brown bready, rye bready layer is a little bit taller. And then above that, you get a bit of the kind of more toasty caramel sitting on top of all of that in the back third of the palate. Then you've got some of the more kind of yeasty, estery qualities coming out of the beer. So let's just look at that quickly. So yeah, back third of the palate, on top of that slightly toasty caramel layer, you do get a few more airy, brown bready notes out of it. It's got a little bit of a woody, crackery sort of vibe to it. I'm noticing that your palate is always progressing, and I'm noticing that more. I'm starting to pick up more of the kind of subtleties of the yeast in many of these beers. So yeah, on top of that, a slightly toasty caramelly note on the back of the palate, you start to get those more airy, very yeasty notes. So on the back third of the palate, the flavour is most definitely taller, and then as you come further forward into the middle third of your palate, you can feel it just squashes down. The flavour just condenses down that little bit more the further into the aftertaste that you go. So yeah, I really like how that goes together for sure. So gets a big thumbs up from me. Yeah, I like the way the malty barrel aged side of this beer goes together. It really is very, very nicely done. You probably could age this longer and get a bit more complexity out of it, but I think it's nice as it is, to be honest with you. And I wanted to do a Dutch beer review. I wanted a barley wine. That's why I opened it when I did. Yeah, I've only had this beer about a week or two actually at the time of filming. So yeah, not sure exactly when you guys are going to see this one, right enough. But anyway, let's focus on the hoppy and fruity side of the beer then. So back corners of the palate, there's a nice little bit of earthiness in there. Then as you go further forward, the earthiness, I'll point out, is very, very smooth. And remember, when this beer's been barrel aged, a lot of the hoppy character has dropped out of it. So there's a little bit of earthiness in there. As you move further forward, there's a little bit of a herbal character, and as you push toward the kind of front corners of the palate, there's a little bit of a kind of floral, aromatic sort of thing to this one as well. But as I say, the hop, the green component in this beer is quite oily, and it is quite subdued because of the barrel aging. But round the front curve of the palate, it's a little bit lighter, and it's a little bit more kind of grassy in a sense. There is still a little touch of grassy zestiness there, but yeah, the floral and grassy notes are quite oily in this one. But like I say, it suits the whole beer. This one's one of these ones, it's like a proper old school American style barley wine, this, and it works very, very well. Yeah, really is, as I say, it gets a big thumbs up from me, this one. Let's focus on the front third of your palate and the fruity side of things then to round off. So the border region between front third and middle third of your palate, you get a little bit of a kind of bready build up there, and it's almost like a kind of, fruit loaf, sort of brown, brandy soaked bread. It's something like that. It's that kind of flavour you're getting there in the border region between front and middle third of the palate. The base of the front third of the palate is a more smooth, oaky, woody sort of thing. Then you've got that nice oily bubble where the juicy, fruity esters roll their way out of the beer. And yeah, the fruity side of this beer, it's kind of like we described in the aroma, in fairness. When you first take it in, you will get a little touch of a slightly raisiny sharpness and maybe a wee bit of plummy notes, but this beer really leans toward a more kind of dry, fruity flavour profile in that sense. So there's a bit of prune in there on top, then you've got a nice kind of datey note as well. Underneath that, you will get a little touch of a more red figgy kind of quality. So on the back half of the front third of the palate, it's more like figs, a little bit of prune, and then a little bit of date sitting on top of that. But as you move further forward, there's a little bit of a kind of oily, peary character to it, and a little bit of black currant as well. But it's more like the kind of datey and pruny notes that kind of linger there for me, along with that, kind of brandy soaked fruit loaf type flavour. It's just a really, really nicely done beer, this one, and that's all we really have to say about the fruity side of it. It's like dry fruits, prunes, dates, little bit of fig, little touch of black currant. It's really nicely done. So massive thumbs up for me. I can feel the booze from this one going to my head right now, but I like it, needless to say. Let's round off this review then with a wee look at the mouthfeel. So, mouthfeel wise, I would say that this beer, it is full bodied. For me, it's at the bottom end of full bodied. I would say that's because it's barrel aged, so you sacrifice a bit of the mouthfeel for these nice infused flavours that we have. It's quite an oily beer. At the same time, it feels quite clean. The carbonation, is kind of smooth and contributes to that. In terms of IBUs, it's a bit hard to pick out in this one because you can feel there is a sort of lingering floral character to this one. So it's actually very difficult to pick out the IBUs in this. Does it say? It doesn't say anything about the IBUs in this one. We know that the hops in this beer though are Chinook and Challenger, which are quite popular bittering hops from the US. And Challenger's probably the one that's giving you that kind of fruity complexity. Chinook is more likely to give you a kind of more red fruity character. So the red fruits are probably coming from the Chinook in this one. The Challenger's probably the one that's giving you the more dry fruity characters. Bitterness, it's hard to pick out with this beer. Maybe it's about 50 IBUs, something like that. It's not blowing the head off me in terms of bitterness, but there is definitely a kind of bitterness to the green component of the beer. The malty base and the barrel aging side of things we've described quite in depth, and it's lovely. And the fruity side of this one, I think, is really nice. Lovely big oily fruits, a little bit of dry character, but a bit of an oiliness to it as well. But overall, I think this is just a lovely old school American barley wine, so it gets a big thumbs up from me. I think we can leave it at that for this one. So this one is the Bommen Granaten, the Bourbon Barrel Aged Edition, a 13.6% barley wine from Brouwerij de Molen in Bodegraven in the Netherlands. Beautiful beer, and if you're watching from Sweden, this one is available through Systembolaget, so buy it up while you can. It's at a good age, it's 1.25 years old, so you need to leave barley wines, I think, in the bottle for about a year, and that's when you'll start to see them doing what they should do. So I think this was a really nice time to review this one. You can age it more, but yeah, I don't know if you're really going to get much more out of it. It's lovely as it is. So yeah, let's leave it at that for this one. Once again, thank you for watching my beer reviews. Until the next time, please like, subscribe, share, all the usual YouTube stuff. Check out my social media, check out their social media. Let me know your own thoughts on this beer in the comment section below. Let me know your favourite beers from Brouwerij de Molen. Check out my friends at the Dutch Beer Collective. You'll find the link in the video description below. Do give me some Dutch beer and brewery recommendations. It's always great to hear those. And I will catch you guys again very, very soon. Slàinte, skål, cheers. Make sure you check out this one from Brouwerij de Molen. Skål, prost.